Hello, everyone, and welcome to another elite episode of the Get Authentic with Marcus show. I'm your host, Marcus Ogden. On today's episode, we are joined by Miss Cynthia Aguiar. But before bringing up Cynthia to the stage, I want to thank one of our amazing sponsors, the Fran Dream. This episode is sponsored by the Fran Dream. Last week, we opened up a question that's still ringing in my ears. Is the secure career you've built for your family silently costing them everything that truly matters? I want to recap why that matters and why you should care. I lost a business and I lost the feeling that I was truly protecting the people I love. The real damage wasn't the money, it was the sleepless nights and that hollow pull in my chest when I missed another family moment. That emotional weight is the real villain. It creeps into your choices and slowly steals the life you imagined building for your family. But there's a different way, a proven, disciplined, step by step path that trades anxiety for ownership and replaces fragile security with durable, systems driven income. The Fran Dream builds that path for professionals who want a real legacy without sacrificing presence. If you want a practical next step, not theory, go to podcast.thefrandream.com/Marcus. That link is in the show notes. Again, the podcast.thefrandream.com/Marcus. Check it out now and take the first step towards a secure legacy. Now, here she is. Cynthia, how you doing today, Cynthia?
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, first question, Cynthia, what does the word authentic/authenticity mean to you?
Yeah, I love this question. I talk about this a lot. I think authenticity to me is a journey. It's a continuous coming back because I
Hmm.
think, in our lives, we have tons of beliefs, right? We adopt all these beliefs that tell us we're not enough, that tell us we have to be somebody different. And so, as we continue to explore these beliefs, challenge these beliefs, do the body-based work to clear these beliefs, we get to come back to being our authentic self step by step. And so, what me being authentic today is going to be different than me being authentic tomorrow. It continuously changes. And so, for me, it's actually really a practice. What beliefs are telling me that I can't be truly who I am today, and how can I challenge those a little bit at a time so I can continue this practice of coming back home to myself? So, for me, it's a journey and it's a practice.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a journey and it's a practice.
Mhm.
I tell people from my perspective, authenticity is being who you are in the moment,
Mhm.
knowing the moment is going to change because we're not the same people. We grow, we evolve, we mature, we have experiences, we go through life, we go through all kinds of different things, ups, downs, trauma, joys, all these things. So being authentic to me is knowing who you are in the moment, knowing that the moment's going to change. What are your thoughts on that, Cynthia?
I love that. I think it's kind of like the law that like there's nothing of impermanence. Nothing is not everything's going to change, right? Like nothing is permanent. Everything changes. You're going to continue to change, and especially as you continue to do the work, as you grow, as you meet new people, right? We're going to continuously experience challenges that make our nervous system and us a little bit stronger. We're going to have fears that kind of pop up as we are become stretched in terms of our capacity and growth. So I think it's continuously changing. We're not going to ever be the same people that we were before as we are today, and none of us are meant to be who we were before. And that was actually such an important realization for me in terms of my own healing journey.
Well, Cynthia, please tell us more about your journey, who
Mm.
you are, where you're from, and what you're currently doing now.
Yeah, okay. I am in London, Ontario, Canada, so a couple hours away from Toronto. I'm a thriving solo mama to two beautiful kiddos. So Julia and Mateo, 12 and 7. My personal story in terms of my healing journey really started in 2021. I was a teacher for 12 years and I was in a severe car accident and had a brain injury. And this really, it stopped my life. And at the time I owned a professional dance company, so I'm a dancer. I was a mom. I'm still a mom, but I was, living my best life kind of as a mom, and it felt easier than it did after my brain injury, that's for sure. And I was
Sure.
teaching full time. And so I always said like I was living my best life, right? And the realization, my healing journey was like, because I kept saying like I just want to go back to living my best life, being able to walk in a straight line again, because I couldn't do that. I couldn't drive for a long time. It took me years to really recover. And it's really what brought me into my purpose now and exactly what I do. So, very much believing that everything happens for a reason. But, I realized that none of us are meant to be who we were in 2021. And so, it was a huge realization that surrendering. So, fast forward a couple years, I was still really struggling with my recovery, technology, speaking, momming. Like, I couldn't figure out how to make my kids lunch. Like, I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't walk in a straight line. I couldn't dance. And slowly I started to do these things again. But what started happening was I started having panic attacks as I was going back on stage for dance, as I was momming and just so overwhelmed. And this is where nervous system regulation comes in. That's where I started going, okay, you know what? I need to help regulate my nervous system, and then all of my other tools and therapies, eye doctors, everything will start to work. And so that's what I did. And a tool that changed my life for me was EFT tapping. And that is what I teach today. And so all of this, fast forward to now, and now I own a professional dance company and I'm back on stage. We do music videos, I produce, I do things like that, storytelling through movement, and I'm a performance coach. So I do performance coaching for artists, athletes, creatives to help them feel really safe on stage and share their message, or perform at a high performance. And then I'm also a body-based coach. So I do a technique called getting your body on board with your success, because in a world that really talks a lot about mindset, which is great, we're realizing that actually your body is really the one that's controlling. Your body is designed for survival, and we can't outthink our bodies. Our body will always win in terms of survival. And so that's what I do today. I help business owners really succeed without burnout, and then I also help with some performance coaching as well.
This is fantastic. So it's very interesting. You talk about body performance coaching. So I'm big onto mindset. And there's a quote I'm going to say here in a moment that I think now that I kind of heard you say that, right, Cynthia, it really encompasses and brings in mind and body into one powerful quote, which I say all the time. But it's more for me from a mindset perspective. But then I hear the word body in there one time in its place so eloquently that it makes it so the body and the mind are very important together. So before that, what kind of athletes do you work with? Because I'm a former athlete, as you know, from the NFL. What sports do you like to work with when it comes to athletes?
Yeah, so it's anybody who, even in terms of like the fitness industry, I
Mhm,
consider dancers to be athletes because they are
mhm,
extremely athletic. I was a
mhm.
gymnast and then I went to dance. So my focus really is on dancers. I'm going to be doing some things at the university, possibly with some track and field athletes. But there's actually a lot of and I was actually speaking to, I think he was a former professional basketball athlete. And so there's a lot of research coming out about the specifically EFT tapping and athletes, because they did a
Mm,
study with EFT tapping. And EFT tapping I think you'll love, because it's very much mind body coming together, and I'll explain kind of
okay.
how it works after. But they did studies with professional basketball players, and just 15 minutes of EFT tapping actually increased their free throw accuracy by 20.6%. Whereas their control group, I think that they had them reading something for those 15 minutes, actually went down by 16%. And so it's a
Mm,
huge difference. And now it's gaining so much traction. I forget who the Olympian, what his name is, but I think he was doing track and field. And there was this like huge media kind of went nuts because they saw him EFT tapping before going on to to compete. And so EFT tapping is a power tool. It is used for healing, but it's also used for performance. And it really has shown to increase performance. I think there's a lot of, a lot of golfers are doing it for precision. And so I can kind of explain how it works, but and it's my mission to actually bring it to more teams because it is so powerful and can really help not only with performance, but recovery too.
This is awesome. So before we get into what EFT tapping is from a tactical perspective, so I'll tell you the quote, then who it's by, then you give me your thoughts, your feedback. So the quote is, never tell your mind, see, negative thoughts in a joking manner. Your body cannot dissimulate the difference. Words cast spells. That's why it's called spelling.
Yes.
Choose how you talk to yourself and choose wisely. Bruce Lee.
Oh, I love.
Now, now, give us your feedback because you heard mind, right? It said, don't take your mind negative thoughts because your body can't process and can't dissimulate the difference. Please give us your perspective on that quote.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, words carry energy. And I'm still into, energy psychology. Words carry energy, and positive thoughts kind of lead to positive actions, I think. And so I think it's remembering that even if when we're saying something, there's a visual aspect that comes to that. And remembering that if you're visualizing something, your body doesn't actually know the difference. Your body will think that you're there. And so that's why we also say visualize the future, not the past, right? If you're wanting to move differently. And so what we're telling ourselves, like those voices, really probably also represent the voices we heard when we were younger. And those voices live in our body because we absorb what people told us before. So if we're saying something to ourselves that's negative, it's probably because we've heard that before. It's associated to a belief. And that belief lives in your body. Before the age of 7, we're literally like, think of it, it's really smart. Our body's brilliant. We're going to adopt everyone's beliefs around us for survival. Right? So, like, oh, my parents said this, they talked like this. Okay, I have to adopt that so that I can keep myself safe. So it's very, very brilliant. But the thing is, a lot of those beliefs we don't really need, and those beliefs turn into voices that we then tell ourselves. So if we're telling ourselves those things, it's probably also because it's living in your body. And when you say that, then that's also going to send that message. It's going to reinforce what we call an embedded alarm, which can feel very triggering, which can feel very negative. And so, yeah, telling yourself positive affirmations is going to be a great tool. And it is a body-based tool when we can actually feel into it, when we can take a moment to move it into our bodies. And that's where merging it with a body-based approach is going to be key. It's a body-mind approach.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a body mind approach. Love it. So now let's get into it, Cynthia. Please tell us what is EFT tapping, and please let us know how do you implement EFT tapping.
Okay. Oh my gosh. This gets me so excited. I love it because it's changed my life. First of all, I used EFT tapping the first time when I was trying to get myself out of the panic attack. I didn't know what was happening before going on stage, and it got me out of it instantly. I use it all the time. I use it with my kids. So, EFT tapping merges modern psychology, so the talk therapy, the mind, with a body based approach, acupuncture. So, what you're doing, you're literally taking your hands and you're tapping different acupuncture points along your meridian lines. Okay. And while you're doing this, you're actually making statements. So it's again pulling both of them together. Now, in EFT tapping, we're also going to validate what we're feeling because it is hard to lie to your body, right? We want to continue to say positive things, but we also need to validate the emotion that we're feeling. So, as a performer or as an athlete, let's say, how would we use it? Well, we would go something like this. You would start at, we call this the chopping point. So, imagine where you do your karate chop point, that's where it is. And we call it psychological reversal, it just gets the energy flowing. And as you're topping, you might go, even though I feel really nervous right now, or even though there's a lot of pressure to win this game, I deeply and completely accept myself. So it's pulling that positive affirmation of acceptance, of reducing that shame as we're getting the energy flowing to then accept how we feel. And as we do this, it's actually a direct line into our subconscious. We can rewire our nervous system in this way. It also, research shows it reduces your cortisol by 43% in one session. And so that's the stress center, or that's our stress hormone, right? Like that's a chemical that's very much associated with stress and can actually have quite a lot of negative effects if it's heightened for a long time. So 43%, it calms the amygdala, the stress center in your brain, and brings the attention back into your prefrontal cortex, where you can really plan, where you can focus and be more in your body, especially as an athlete, performer, speaker, whatever it is that you're doing. It improves immune function. One study said by 122%. There are hundreds of clinical studies about this. So like, and what I love about this is that it's science-based too. It's energy
Mhm.
psychology, but it merges mind body together. And there are hundreds of clinical studies that really show how powerful it is. So it's been transformative for me as a mom, as a performer, as a speaker, but also in terms of, the clients that I now serve and support, to just have in your toolbox.
Ladies and gentlemen, anything that can reduce your stress, your anxiety, how you feel in a moment, because we as human beings, we all have some sort of stress, anxiety that we go through, especially in a high pressure situation. So I really like this because it is a very simple yet very effective tool that has been backed by not just experience from people feeling it, but also from science. Again,
Yeah.
reducing stress and cortisol, improving your immune system. All these things are so vital to your long term success, I feel, in business and in life. Because again, if a lot of times people, that's my question for you, Sid. This is actually really interesting. A lot of people always say that if they do something bad, commit a crime, make a mistake, whatever the case may be in life, right? They were feeling intense pressure. They were
Yes.
feeling intense sense of like anxiety, or like they were just they couldn't control their emotions. They felt like in a state of like just uncertainty or panic, right? And people, you do things like that when you're not feeling well or in bad times. So
Yeah.
what I'm hearing is that this awesome, EFT tapping can help people return to a state of calmness. Because again, unless you're just a sociopath, aren't going to make a mistake or do something harmful to somebody else when you're in a state of calm, because you're
Yeah.
like, you feel better, you feel more control. Can you please explain to people how this simple exercise, backed by experiences, backed by data, can help them reduce the possibility of doing something, right, Cynthia, that they know they're going to regret later on?
Yeah, I love this question. And I love your perspective on that because nobody wants to hurt other, we're not born like that,
Yeah.
And there's one study that actually showed that they did an EFT tapping trial and it actually healed PTSD symptoms to like no longer being considered PTSD in 6 sessions. And so, there's so much research to show this, but I see it as two separate things. There's regulating your nervous system in the moment. So using it as a tool, as like, oh my gosh, I feel the water boiling. And this is a tool to help move energy through. Because when we're feeling rage, it's energy that's stuck that has to come out. And a lot of it is actually fear based, right? It's a lot due to probably experiences that are living in the body. And so that person, when that trigger, that embedded alarm goes off, and there's a huge, we call it an electrical charge that usually lives in your fascia, we then are going to experience like this really heightened state. What EFT tapping is going to do the minute you feel the boiling point is that it's going to calm the amygdala, which is that stress center in your brain. And the more you do it, the more you're creating a sense of safety. You're retraining your body to feel safe in that situation. And so that situations become less and less triggering. And what happens often is that we hit this like heightened state, but we don't have the tools to come back down to regulate
Mhm.
our nervous system. And we want a flexible nervous system. We don't want to be calm all the time. We're allowed to feel angry and all of the emotions. and it's actually going to strengthen our nervous system, but we want to be able to come back down. And so this is really going to help kind of regulate that. And then the more we do it throughout the day, in like, it's again, everything is a practice. The more we do it in the little moments, 5 minutes here and there, the more we're teaching our body that we're actually safe to be in this world. That situation that my body saw as really, really, really scary, that makes me have this huge reaction, isn't actually maybe as dangerous as I thought. And we can't do that. You really need to come into the body to really close that, what we call an emotional loop. And so that's one sense. And then what it's also going to do, it's when you're tapping on different points and making these statements, like we if we're doing it in terms of healing for those types of situations, we want to go deeper, right? Maybe there's a trauma that that person experienced when they were younger and that's living in their body. And so it's really good for trauma healing as well to help close those emotional loops, because you are literally tapping on the fascia and it's allowing the electrical charge to move through it and to be released. And so what we would do in those instances, we would actually tap on what we call a leg on a specific experience that created a core belief or a core fear. And when you just tap and you clear one of those experiences from the body, the whole table falls. So we call it a leg. And so again, it's really a powerful tool for performance, yes, but also for trauma and for healing and allowing people to come back to, feeling a little bit more safe in this world and therefore less reactive.
Yes, I love that about feeling safe in this world because when you're
Mm.
safe, you are not in like that fight mode or you're
Yeah,
not trying to always, be on guard. You're not trying to always defend yourself. You're
yeah,
trying to just live life a lot more holistically and a
yeah.
lot more just sharing and caring for other people. And so this is fantastic. So, last question, Cynthia. If someone was really wanting to move or get into this space, like you do with performance coaching, EFT tapping, things of that nature, they heard this amazing interview and they were inspired by you and your work. Tell us one thing that people need to be sure they're ready to do in order to embark on this journey of trying to really do this and help others going forward.
Yeah, I love this question. And just to quickly, if I can add on to what you just said, self-actualization, we see Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And while it's maybe a little bit outdated, remembering that the base is actually safety. To be able to self-actualize, we need safety. So if you don't feel safe in your body walking through this world, it's going to be very hard. But I think, you know, I think we can't force EFT tapping. Like, sometimes we say, like, you just have to do it and try it. But if somebody's not ready, they're not ready. I think what you have to be able to do is be open to explore emotion or simply explore maybe feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Because going like this might feel really weird for people. You know what I mean? So, are you ready to feel a little bit uncomfortable? Are you ready to maybe challenge the way that you've always kind of thought? Are you ready to really feel and honor how you're actually feeling? Because when we tap, we're actually saying, like, I feel stressed out. This is really hard, like, or whatever it is. So, are you are you ready to honor where you're at, kind of unapologetically, and just try something new? And if you are, then I'm here. But there's lots of people that do it around the world, and it really is a power tool.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's wrap up this amazing interview. What great stuff, especially around just feeling safe and feeling like yourself and feeling comfortable. Like, this is sensational. Cynthia, how can our audience get in touch with you if they want more information?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I absolutely love your podcast. It's so powerful. So what an honor to be here. But so you can reach me. I'm on Instagram at coach.cynthia.a. You can also reach me at cynthiacoaching.com. And then if you want to follow the dance company, you can go to my Instagram, and you'll find that one there. It's written in French, so it's kind of hard to say, but maybe we'll tag it in the link.
We definitely will. So, again, ladies and gentlemen, follow her on social, connect with her. Those links will be in the show notes. And again, before we close, one quick recap and a push. Let's make sure of this. When I remember feeling like, and I was sitting on the curb, we also had to really concentrate and find an alternative proven playbook that helps you own and operate the asset that creates real cash flow and frees you to be that present person in your life with your family. That's the point. You don't have to choose between providing and living the life you promise your family. If you're ready to move from worry to control, there's a single low friction way to explore it. Request the Fran Dream Blueprint that walks you through the funding, due diligence, and operations so you can make a confident, informed move. Go to podcast.thefrandream.com /Marcus. The link is in the show notes. Again, the podcast.thefrandream.com /Marcus. Start building your secure legacy today. Again, that will be in the show notes. And the authentic tip of this great interview, as Cynthia said so eloquently, please be ready to be uncomfortable when you're trying something new. When I started speaking, I was so uncomfortable. When I started podcasting, I was so uncomfortable. I started coaching, consulting. Hell, when I started playing football, I was so uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable to me means you're on the path to something great.
Yeah.
Just don't let fear knock you off the path. Again, my name is Marcus Ogden. I am the host of the Get Authentic with Marcus show. Thanks for tuning in. Have a fantastic day.